Outer Orange.
Привет, and welcome to a profile that you're probably going to want to listen to because a lot of people really like this deck and it's pretty popular. But if you saw the thumbnail, you know what it's going to be about, and it is Wilista. Let's go ahead. I'm not even going to go into it. It's one of the best decks in the format, probably one of the strongest decks, draws the greatest. It has very few matchups that are really not favorable to it. So we're going to go ahead and start breaking it down. I've been testing the deck a lot, so I thought I'd show you guys my current list. I will say my list will probably change 10 more times. It has changed at least 3 times just within the last 24 hours. But I've been testing it a lot, and I want to share with you guys basically how the Wilista works, sort of kind of deal with it, sort of how the deck functions, my deck profile, and just kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and do that. Start with the ride line and then go through the deck and then probably do a little mulligan roll with you, maybe some tips and stuff like that. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, we'll talk about my sleeves. I'm using the Dragon Shield sleeves for the ride line right now. And then for the actual deck, I'm using Reindeer sleeves. Reindeer is one of my favorite mermaids in the entire, literally in the entire game. So I have the peaceful voice Reindeer sleeves because I absolutely love these. Anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the ride line and just kind of go through sort of how this deck does as my cat continues to meow in the background. So first we got the zero could be whatever you want it to be. I like the kitty cat, so I just run the memeish kitty cat. Next we have the Proof of Hard Work Wilista. She has an on ride effect, so currently she has nothing, but you do need her for full effects. And when you ride into the 2, you get her effect, which basically says put a card into soul, find a gem, and basically just put to hand. The gem you're going to be looking for is this card. This is the new gem that just came out in Wilista. It's a very, very powerful card. We'll get into it here in a second. Part about it is when you get your gem and you get your soul going, this card says when you play a gem, you draw an extra card, and this card draws a card on its own and also gets 5k to the Vanguard, which makes it a very annoying number to block early on in turn 2. And then once you're done, when you ride into Wilista herself, she has a couple effects. So first off, she can, when on place you can discard a card. You'll typically usually want to discard this card, but when you discard a card, you can get a gem back. So you can play your gems, they get back, and you get back from soul or drop. So just something to keep in mind. Other effects too, because this card just kind of keeps going. She says, so you can soul blast the gem card, which you'll be soul blasting this, and perform all the following below according to the soul blast for this cost. So basically this card counts as both gems, so you get the full effects that's on the card. Look at top 5 and basically call a 2 from your top 5 anywhere. So that's the first effect. It's pretty simple, and you just shuffle your deck. The second effect, she gets 15k power, but once you put it all together, it gets very strong. So this deck is insanely consistent. The ride line makes it even more consistent. Going to the 3s, Persona, since you do have an on-place ability kind of similar to Gravidia. If you played Gravidia in the past, you definitely want to see Persona. This deck does flop pretty fast if you don't find Persona, so it really pushes this deck like to the limit, because you can Persona, get the effect, and then you can Persona again, get the effect. Also, the 10k is super massive. It does make rear guards bigger, and your rear guards restand this deck, so you definitely want to find this as it's very crucial. Do run Ophelia F4. This is your restander. Basically, if you play the gem, you get to restand, and actually both of them will get the, if you have 2 on the board, they both get the 15k power, which is pretty insane. It is a CV for the restand, and you do get to set back the center circle card, but you can send back like triggers, OT, PGs, Recycler Girl, which is this girl, send back what you called off the top 5. If your board gets full, you just can send back anything. I did in this spot a while back thought about running this card. I've been in and out running this card because this is a 6 attack and the shield does come up, but I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm gonna have to just say screw this card and just not run anymore. Some people do, some people don't. This is kind of like a tech card. It's pretty good into mirrors if you see it, or see it in the right time, because you can enable the 6 attack and kind of just screw your opponent over. However, it's a very niche situation, doesn't come up enough. The other reason why I like this card for the grade 3 slots is you can actually bounce back another very strong card, which is this card, because she specifically bounced what's behind it. So you can bounce this back, which makes this card better, because bouncing this back is insanely important, because this card carries this deck pretty hard actually. So because of that, this is the reason why I was actually running this. But as time went on, I found that this card just doesn't come up enough, and actually I just took her out. Gosh, I always have trouble saying her name. The Velish plan? I don't know. This is the cycler card for Lyrical. This card is absolutely disgustingly correct in Wilista, especially because the on-ride discard does work. So if you discard this with this, you do get the effects of this. And because you're constantly cycling through your deck, you're constantly sending cards back, you actually gotta see this card a lot. You're running 4 copies, but realistically you're actually running like 6 copies, because I promise you, you'll draw into this card so many. This is the card you'll see the most probably. Like there's so many times where I open up 3 of these and then I see 3 more. Like it's actually just insane. Soul Blast Bomb Decker draw card if you discard through ride base. That's her first effect. Her second effect said on place, if you Persona Road, you can counter blast, give your Vanguard the ability to give your front row 5k. Also very nice because under Persona, you're basically telling your opponent that there's 50k front. CB can be insanely costly, so just something you have to keep in mind. You have to be super, and I mean super cautious with the CB. this deck flies through CB really fast. Unless you're healing, you're gonna watch yourself go through CB very quickly if you get pushed really early or whatever, and you get to the point of Persona and plopping these down and just or trying to finish a game off. You know your opponent has no T's, no heals left, and just popping these two down, especially if you healed or whatever, and just kind of going crazy. It does come up in those situations. So just overall, both skills are really good. One's better than the other. Now I will say, I just want to mention something. I do play this deck a little bit differently from other people, so this is I'm gonna start getting into some weirder stuff that other people don't run, but I run. I'm gonna start with Trixie. So I run 2 copies of Trixie. These used to be Reese's, and if they weren't Reese's, there were this chick, and if they weren't this chick, there were more copies of other cards. I chose to just go back to Trixie. There's a couple of reasons. The Soul Egg is actually pretty important. The top 5 for Wilista can be important. She's actually she can be a beater too, because she's actually a 15k attacker and 25k under Persona, or 30 if you put down the Cycler as well. But the real important part is this part where you can put Great 3s into Soul. So sometimes when you go second, you'll notice yourself that you can get a little behind, and yeah, you have a shot early on to put Ballistas into Soul based off of the ride line, since you do need a Ballista and Soul to have full 5 attacks every single turn. But sometimes you won't see, if you're going second, you actually want a Ballista and Soul pretty early, specifically Grade 3 Ballista. But if you don't find it, you actually have another shot with this card. And then the other thing, let's pretend you don't find Persona, but you're kind of drawing with, you'll find yourself that you draw into a couple of Personas, but you're already past the ride phase of Persona, so you already missed the chance of your 5 attack. Well, cool, you can card down, put the Persona into Soul, top 5 miss, and then draw a card, because our second effect says if you don't find anything, you just straight up draw a card. So you'd be surprised, this card actually comes up quite a lot. And it's an opposite ability, you can just straight up place her off of Ballista's effect and just basically deck in for Ballista. If you don't, you just draw a card. And yeah, there's been times where I'm just like, oh man, I didn't find a Persona. Oh, what do I do? Just plop down some Trixies. Oh, I found everything. Cool, I can play the game again. This does help you. It also helps fix your Soul. So it also helps fix your hand. So sometimes there are situations where your hand has like 2 or 3 of these. Like your hand just has these. You don't need 3 of these in hand, so you can just shove one into Soul and draw into better shield basically, while also potentially finding Persona. I cannot stress enough how important Persona is in this deck. It's almost key to winning the game, I would say. You'll usually lose the games you don't Persona ride. So because of that, I think this card is extremely important. I've almost stopped playing at 3. The only reason it's not at 3 is because this can't boost. And when you already have a board with this on the board and a board with this card, we'll talk about this card in a sec, on the board too, there's just no space for this card. So because there's no space for this card, it feels weird running at more than 2 copies. But the second effect is just so good that sometimes I think about it. I'm like, man, maybe I should bump this up, because I'm telling you that the search is good. The other issue this card has is that you have to be on Grade 3 or greater for her effect to go off. Specifically, for both effects. For both effects, you have to be a Grade 3 or greater. This start a turn sooner, this card would just be like absolutely just actually insane. But yeah, I run it at 2. You do you. I think the Persona is super important. I think this card is definitely underappreciated. I didn't like it at first until I actually started playing it more. And I was like, you know, this card kind of good. It's kind of a good card. Now next we have the Ramona. Now a lot of people run Ramona at like max copies. I don't really know why, to be honest with you. Half the time you're gonna be losing. You don't need her. A lot of the times you actually prefer the Grade 3 on the board over her. She's not bad for the turn 2 rush, don't get me wrong, but honestly sometimes I rush my opponent and then they just heal back down. Like they went from 5 to 3, and I'm like, okay, cool. I guess my rush didn't matter. I wasted my resources. I don't know. Sometimes the rush feels not worth it. 1 on the board feels fine, but two max, I don't know, too early feels a little weird. And then the other thing is, there's definitely been games where I just see too many of these cards and I'm shoving them into Soul, doing other stuff with them. But I don't know. I don't think this is a 4, but I think 3 is a good number, honestly, if I'm gonna be real with you. But I think 4 is too many, and I don't think you need 4 at all. But it's not a bad card, don't get me wrong. But I definitely think 3 max for this card. But it's good. She basically is a beater. You can call her out on your turn 2 turn and just kind of go wacky whack-a-mole with it and just kind of go crazy. So she does come up. Not too bad. Now let's go ahead to the funky part. This is the part that I'm probably gonna get a lot of questions on, and that is the Grade 1s. We're gonna go ahead and start with the order. And yes, you'll notice I am not running a 4th copy of Crossing Illumirace. And you might be wondering, are you insane? Are you trying to like, what's wrong with you? So personally, I think 4 is too many. I know this card is insanely good, don't get me wrong, but you'd be surprised like when your hand gets cluttered with these things, and you don't, the thing about it is once you have 1 and maybe up to 2, you don't really need any more. Find 1 off a ride line, you'll draw into the other one probably. And even if you don't, you can actually keep cycling the same 1. Yes, you don't have 1 in Soul and 1 in Drop all the time, but that's fine. You will still be able to play the game and do what you want to do. And I honestly just like the other cards that are in my deck more than sometimes seeing this. Like if I open like 2 to 3 of these, like I don't know, it doesn't actually matter to me. But if I open 2, I'm fine. 2 is pretty good. 1 is perfect. I sometimes open 0, that's fine too. I'll search them out. I'll usually draw into them anyway. so it doesn't matter. Upside to this card is if you run 4, most people do, then what happens is you don't have to discard with Wilista's effect as often, which is pretty nice. But I'm gonna be real with you, if you're not Persona running, you're just losing, so it doesn't actually matter. So personally, I like 3. I don't like playing this on grade 1 turn. I know a lot of people do, but I don't actually like playing this on grade 1, especially when going first. I usually don't play this unless I'm like, my hand's just complete garbage, but this card's insane. It's really good, but I actually don't think you need 4. So her effect basically says that it can be counted as both gems, and then the ability basically works like this. If you have a Wilista, listen to the card name, you can put this into soul, draw a card, and then if your opponent is grade 3 or greater, you can give the effect to your Vanguard saying when this hero attacks, you can care about soul by stand something, and you can't play any more orders basically. So you can only play like 1 order a turn, but there's no more orders, you can't do anything around it, and that's just how it is. There are cards that Wilista has that gave access to play multiple orders. This card turns it off, so just something you mind, you can't go copium with this deck at all. I will show you guys the replacement card to put this at 4. Actually, the replacement card could be 2 cards. It could be Trixie and Reese's. Reese's is another card that I run in here that you can replace for the 4th copy. So if you're like, well, I want to run 4, well, here you go. There's your 4th copy. I value finding Persona over this. This gives me a draw. This gives me a search. I value the search over the draw, basically. So yeah, so but up to you. But anyway, so yeah, we have 3 of those, and then next I run in the probably one of the most important cards in the deck in terms of mirror matches and just acceleration and dealing with decks like Diva. This is Aloe Vera. So Aloe Vera basically says draw a card. That's our full effect. So if you play these starting turn 3 or greater, basically just keep drawing cards, or specifically turn 3 where you have the Prism Wilista specifically. So basically you just draw cards. So if you have like 3 of these on the board, you probably won the game. Unless some weird stuff happens, chances are you won the game. Games where I feel I'm struggling the most is the games where I have 0 of these and I find 0 of these. I found that this card is extremely versatile. I've seen some lists run 3, some lists run 4, some lists run 2, and I'm like, I don't know how you're doing that. I know you can top 5 into them, but they are just so... First of all, you can plop these down early. So if you're not facing retired decks, you don't actually care about playing them behind Vanguard, because Vanguard is the one place, then you can send it back and then find them again. It doesn't matter. So sometimes early on, I'll actually rush with this card. I'll just call her early and just I put her behind Vanguard and boost with her. Yes, Vanguard's big, but sometimes people will still play for the 1 to pass. I don't want that to happen. I don't want people 1 to passing me. So I'll actually just straight up plop her down and force them to take the damage and just kind of roll with that. That's my version of rushing, I guess you could say. Some people call it, I don't have to use as many resources. I just call the 1 card down. I have the extra 5k off of the gem and I'm just good to go. And then later on, I just bottom deck her for the Olivia effect, Ophelia effect, and then I'll just probably see her again. If you there's been games where I just, especially mirrors is extremely important. Into the mirrors, you want to be able to have the better shield and just be able to deal with what your opponent's doing faster. If you just don't open this card, you are struggling. You are going to have a really bad time. The other thing is you want to find Persona. Yeah, you want to draw. So here you go. And this card works really well with the gem. It's just overall just a good card. I feel this card is just too important. This should be at 4. Card that's less important, maybe because of soul issues, is actually Yuika. It's an insanely good card. Don't get me wrong. However, the soul gets really costly, especially with the cycler. The cycler makes it really hard to play this card at 4. This card is too important. I used to actually run this at lower copies and I realized what a dumbass I was, and I was like, I gotta put this back to 4. But because of that, Yuika, sadly because of the soul and everything, you're gonna go through so much soul that you gotta cut somewhere. So I actually cut back the Yuikas to 3. Next, as you bounce the thing in front of it with a soul blast, and your opponent's grade 3 or greater, she also gets an additional 5k if something's placed in front of it. So it's basically a 30k beater, and then also a bouncer, so you can save important units such as Ophelia. You can pick up your personas this way. You can pick up basically anything you want. There have been times where I top 5 into nothing but PGs, and I just call the PGs and then bounce them back to hand with this card. I do want to run Reese's, and this has been the 4th order. This has been the grade 3. This has been a lot of things. This has been a Trixie. This has been another copy of Romana. At the end of the day, I think this is the best option here, but realistically, you could put like a lot of stuff in here. You always want to put it on something that usually restands. Sometimes the only thing I like about this is the timing can be a little off, and sometimes you'll just miss the timing to put it on her, which is where you ideally want it. You ideally want the 10k to go on her, but sometimes she just won't be on the board, because sometimes you'll top 5 and you'll actually find her and you won't find her, and what happens is the 10k goes to another booster. Typically I'll just put it on a booster, like if I have like a column like this. If my column is the Romana and the Yuika, then I'll use the 10k and either put it here or here. Typically, I'll usually put it here. So that does happen sometimes. It is what it is. It does come up, but I didn't really like it at first, and I liked it and I didn't like it. I've been kind of going up and down with this card. I do like the fact that there's boosts, and there aren't that many boosters in this deck. So that being said, this is definitely a good card to have just as a booster, because she's basically boosting their column while also boosting herself, and then you can bomb deck her, do whatever. Very, very, very mandatory PGs. You can bounce these back to hand, so you definitely want these. They're just really good. Going into trigger triggers. I think triggers is probably the most basic part about this deck. I think everyone runs about the same. Blue OT, you can run the red OT. I think the blue one's a little bit better just for cycling through your deck, PG, survivability, whatever. If you want to just kill your opponent faster, sure, go for the red OT. That's fine. I think the crit is really nice in this deck because this deck has a lot of aggression and numbers already, so the crit actually matters more than I think anything else. The lyrical OT is nice and all, but what the lyrical OT isn't is that it doesn't have any crit pressure. Like, that's the thing about the lyrical OT to begin with. Like, lyrical's like, oh, a lot of people are scared of the lyrical OT, but it has absolutely no pressure on it. It's just big numbers. You can PG big numbers. You give to, but it's a lot harder to deal with crit pressure. Crit pressure is way more massive, so being able to just recycle something back to hand is just really nice too. So I think the blue OT definitely wins. But then we have the heal, 4 generic heals. This is the counter heal subject. I had counter heals in here. I had a 2-2 split. I hated it. I thought it would come up enough to where it mattered, but I'm not gonna lie, even against the Gandiva matchup, I think I'd rather just PG the Vanguard, to be honest, than throw down the 25k shield and go 2 to pass, basically. I don't know. It's strangely enough, it actually I prefer the 50k shield. I've been having this issue also with like other decks where I run the counter heals, and I realized over time that I think just vanilla is just the way to go. The counter heals do absolutely nothing into a mirror, and I think the mirror is the most hardest matchup to beat outside from maybe Gandiva. Like Gandiva, you farm so many PGs that you'll usually be okay. So with that being said, I definitely think these are just a better option. I run 4 fronts. I've been thinking about putting one more crit in, but I like the fronts mainly for the shield too. Sometimes your hand is fake and you just have a bunch of grade 3s and 2s in your hand, and so the extra shield does come up. The 20k shield is really nice, especially if you're going second. Going second is really hard, especially into mirrors and stuff like that. So I value the fronts. I run the vanilla crits, and then I run 3 of the soul crits. The soul crits don't come up at all, to be honest with you. So if you feel like you want to take these out, I'm not gonna lie, I'm running this for the flex. I'm just running this because these are a speed. These could easily, and I mean easily, be regular vanilla crits. You really do not need the soul crits. That's the whole deck. Let's go do a quick mulligan. I'll just kind of give you an example of sort of what this all looks like, and then we'll just kind of go from there. I shuffled a little bit, so I guess let's go ahead and have our little run here. We get some dice here, see if I'm going first or second. Okay, so we're gonna use my big boy Pepe dice here. So it's a really big dice. It's very heavy. I'm just gonna throw it. Okay, I got 3. Let's see what my opponent gets. They got a 6. This is actually a 6. One will going first, so they're going to do their thing. Then we're going to go. I usually sometimes just have to give up my triggers. I am going second, so I actually might want to keep the Trixie here. We'll draw, and then we'll probably just usually I actually typically put this card down if I can. If I know I'm not doing the retire matchup, I'll pop this down and force out the trigger here and see what happens. Then it's our turn. We're going to damage a Trixie here, and then we're going to go ahead and go again. Here we're going to go ahead and probably... So a little tough here. This is an early game with this deck when it comes to pitching gets really hard, but we're gonna go ahead and draw probably a crit trigger here to run into the 2, and then use the 2's effect for the grade 1. We're probably gonna have to say goodbye to Uica here, unfortunately, and just get out our gem and just call it a day. Hopefully we'll get some insane draws here to kind of keep us going, but we'll have to see. Instantly put her into soul and draw 2 cards. And that's an OT. This is actually going to be very rough here. So we're going to swing in. This will be 23. And we'll check. Okay. We might have a comeback. So we'll take a damage here. We did hit a front, which will probably help us deal with some of this early aggro here. They might still push us. They did go first. So we'll do that. And then now it's our go. We're going to draw. We do have this card. So we're actually going to go ahead and use this for the cost here to Soul Blast and send this card to the bottom to then draw a card and then use the effect to bring this back to hand. Off of another discard. So we're actually gonna pitch. I think we just pitch the Reese's here. Say goodbye to Reese's. We're gonna go ahead and pop this down here. Typically, since we don't have the gem and soul, this is kind of all we have to do, and that's okay. It does happen in the world. So we're gonna go ahead and actually just draw 3 cards. And then, oh, there goes another one. And then we're gonna use the effect to Soul Blast, check top 5. Hopefully our top 5 isn't terrible. Our top 5 is okay. So we're gonna go ahead and call these 2 out. Probably something like this. This will swing for 13 at first, but then get a lot bigger. Or we can do it like this, where this is a 20 and this is the 13 at first. But I think ideally we want something like this. So we're gonna go ahead and get that set up. We have a 4 attack turn right now, but you know, at least it's something. So we're gonna go ahead and activate her ability. And since we do have an extra Ophelia, we're actually gonna go ahead and just shove that right in. And boom, already look at that persona. Very nice. Very good for us. Definitely needed in this situation. So yeah, so we got our persona, which does help a lot. So now we have the persona set for next turn. Now here it doesn't really matter what we do here. We're probably just gonna go for 13, swing face. She does have an extra 20k power since we did play the gem, and this card itself gets power. So I'll go ahead and do our drive checks here. We have a crit, pop crit here, power here or here, just kind of depends on the situation. Use her effect to the bottom deck this, counter blast and shuffle. So that's what we're gonna do there. We're gonna go ahead and swing this side and pass it into our opponent. We have a lot of shield here to work with. Typically I get a little greedy depending on what damage they're on. So I usually take a shot, and we did heal. So I'm gonna go ahead and heal out the counter blast I took. Probably take another damage. Oh, we heal again. So we are healing one more time. We're at a 33k base now. Opponent's probably gonna think about swinging into these, so we'll let them go. We might have to guard somewhere more. There are some decks that can break through, maybe drop out another guard, and now it is our turn again. We're gonna go ahead and draw a card. We're gonna Persona Ride, draw again. Here we have the option to discard to play the gem, but to be honest, we have a gem in hand already, so we actually don't need to do that. You can choose to if you want the extra gem in hand, but actually, usually when this stuff happens, I actually just say screw it and just kind of roll with the dough. So I'm actually just gonna play this, and we're gonna go ahead and play our gem and draw 3 cards again. And then we just got another gem because you kind of find them a lot. And then we'll go ahead and Soul Blast the gem to again look at top 5. And we're not going to find anything too crazy, which is expected. We can do some funny stuff here, actually. So I'm actually going to call this here, and I'm going to call over Trixie because she's already done. So you either call Yuika or the 1. I'm actually going to call Yuika in this situation just because we want the numbers. We got the Persona, and we also have this on standby back here, which is very, very, very big for us here. So we're going to go ahead and actually use her effect to counter blast, give our another basically a 15k. So we're under a 15k front right now, and we do have good cards in our hand to kind of fix the issue that we were having with our top 5. We're just going to go ahead and call both these cards, and we basically have full combo here. We have a Wilista and Soul, and we have Soul for other stuff. We're basically just set up. So in this situation, you kind of have a couple options. If you want, you can actually do it like this. I usually do it like this, and the reason being is I actually like leaving the Interceptor on the board. If I'm dealing with non-retired decks, I can use this as shield because I don't really care about this card. I do care a lot about this card though, so I'll usually Soul Blast this back to hand, but ideally I actually prefer it this way, but usually for just numbers, but it's fine. So we are under 15k front here, so we're gonna go ahead and swing. This will be 28 at the Vanguard, and then I usually boost here, so I will boost. This has 10 on it, so this is 18, 28, 38, 43 at your opponent's Vanguard. Then we're going to swing with this. We're going to activate the ability of the gem here. We're going to Soul Blast a Wilista to then go ahead and restand this. So this is now 20 on her own, and then 35 total with the Persona. And the extra 5k. So we're going to go ahead and drive check here. We do get a front, which just amplified our powers even more. And then we're going to go ahead and use, we have 3 counter blasts. So we have the 2 face down, 1 up. So go ahead and counter blast, stand this, and send this card back. So now we just got an even beefier situation here going, and just absolutely amazing. This is ballistic gameplay right here. It just goes crazy. So this is now swinging for 45, and this just got an extra 15 on it on top of the booster. So depending on the situation of your opponent's damage, how you want to do it, sometimes swing here first, sometimes you swing with the big number first. It kind of just depends on the board state and what they're doing. So we can swing here. This will be 45, and then we can swing this side. This is 21 on its own, 31 off Persona, 36 with the extra 5k, and then another 5k off of this, which is 41, another 15 off of this, which is 51, 56 at the opponent's Vanguard, and then they do whatever. We'll just go ahead and Soul Blast and just bump this back to hand, and now it is their turn. I'm sitting at 3 damage, so again, we don't have a Persona again though, which is, I don't know what's going on this game, but we just don't have one. But we can go ahead and just take damage. We did hit a crit. We hit another crit. Oh my god. So we're back at a 33k base, so we'll probably intercept PG, you know, whatever. We don't really care to be honest. Our hand is like way too stacked at this point for a lot of stuff to matter, and this does happen a lot of the games that you go through. Cool, maybe we'll top deck. I'll do one more round basically of this. We did top deck the Persona, which is absolutely hilarious. So we'll go ahead and Persona again to draw a card. I drew into another Persona. We don't actually care about the gem once more. You can choose to go into it if you want to. We do have this girl. We could cycle her here, and honestly, I actually am going to do that. So I am going to Soul Blast for the cycle, and the reason why is because I'm not going to use her anyway because I only have 2 open counterblasts to work with. So I am going to go ahead and Soul Blast just to have an extra card in hand, just for the lulz. We're actually going to go ahead and grab her. Yeah, we have a really good hand. We're about to have an even better time here in a second. So we're going to go ahead and call this down, draw 3 cards. Yeah, wow, you see what I mean? We just get them back. We just get you'll get them back. Anyway, we'll go ahead and Soul Blast the gem to use Wilista's effect, get that 15. Go ahead and look at what our top 5 is going to look like. There is yet another Ophelia, a PG. Oh my goodness. As crazy as it sounds, I might make PG an attacker here. You don't have to. Ideally, you probably want it to be like a grade 3 or something, but I actually want to bounce this back. So we're about to deck out, so it actually doesn't matter in this situation what we do. But this is basically our deck. Our deck has no more triggers in it, and we knew what the bottom card was because we're the ones that sent it back. That's the 2. We have no more triggers left. That's how many triggers we've been hitting. You can call over this if you want to just call something better. Sure, you can call over this back here. Like maybe put the OT back if you want, since we don't have any triggers back there. I'm usually kind of iffy about sending back triggers back here. I'll sometimes do it if I feel like I need to, depending on the crit heal situation that's going on, but typically I usually don't like to just neg myself that much, so I won't call. But in this situation, we'll just call just to show you guys the OT interaction. So again, we're gonna go ahead and swing with our very funny P guard that's actually swing for 16 right now. And with this boost, since this isn't Uico, we can actually boost here. And swing face, we can then Soul Blast the Wilista to counterblast and basically stand this, do our drive checks. We're not going to hit anything because we're out of stuff. Send this OT. OT here is actually the worst thing we could have sent because we only have 3 cards, but this is just experimental here. Go ahead and stand this off of the CB here, and she gets plus 15, and then you swing with these 2, and then we can Soul Blast and actually bounce the PG back to hand. And that's basically a pretty good representation of sort of what Wilista looks like. As you noticed, I made a lot of decisions based off what my front row and back row is looking like as the game went. But oh, my OT was at the bottom. I wasn't gonna check it anyway. But for the most part, that's basically the deck. There are some important pieces of keeping track of your Ophelias because they're super important, and keeping track of Persona, as you saw we were. You saw Trixie come. We saw Trixie come up in that game. As y'all saw, we actually did not have a Persona or a way to shove her into Soul or anything, and we were going second in that situation. We did heal in that game. That's the deck. As you guys saw, it does some insane stuff. We hit double defenses twice because sometimes that does happen. The deck just does its thing. It just exists. It's Wilista doing Wilista things. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this helps you in your deck building and your Wilista planning and your BCS and whatever else, shop challenge, whatever else you're doing. I've been entering this deck with shop challenge. I've been having overall a pretty good time. I haven't been placing first or anything so far, but I have been enjoying playing the deck in shop challenge so far. And yeah. Good luck, guys, and all that fun stuff. 50cards.shop if you need any of your belongings or anything, any cards, any of that stuff. Code orange for all that kind of stuff. So do not forget to shop with me and get your goodies. So yeah, guys. Anyway, peace out. That's Vidania. I'll catch you guys in a future video. Bye.